Children, today we'll start a new topic and a new chapter, that is chapter 7 of history book 2nd, and it is about the medieval history of South India. So the chapter is the imperial capital, that is Vijayanagara. You must have read it in the 7th class also, so we will read in detail in this class. So you can see that this is the map of Vijayanagara. So it used to be in the South India, especially the areas which it contained, that was of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. So we will read about this Vijayanagara Empire, which used to be the greatest empire of its time. You can see that this is an image of a temple, and this temple used to be there in the capital of Vijayanagara, that was the Hampi, and the temple is Virupaksha. So here we will read about the Vijayanagara and its environments, and what kind of social life used to be there, what was the capital of Vijayanagara, and what kind of administration was there, what were the buildings which were designed by the people of Vijayanagara. There are many temples which were designed by the people of Vijayanagara and the ruler of Vijayanagara. And who were the dynasties which ruled over Vijayanagara, that we will read in this chapter, because this was a capital which was surrounded by the Sultanate of the South India, and this was the only Hindu kingdom in the South India at that time, which used to be very, very powerful. Now we will read about the sources through which we come to know about the imperial kingdom of Vijayanagara. First comes the oral sources. The oral sources generally told by the priests, which are the priests in the temples of Lord Shiv, that is the Virupaksha temple, Vithala temple. You can see that this is the image of Hampi's stone chariot that is in Vithala temple, and you can see this stone chariot also on the currency note of rupees 50. This has been shown over there. So from the priest of these temples we come to know about the great tradition of Vijayanagara. Second is inscription. There are many inscriptions which were written by the people of Vijayanagara, and these inscriptions are written on various stone surfaces of these temples. Then monuments. There are various monuments which are still there, like one is this stone chariot, and there are many other temples which are there, through which we come to know about the Vijayanagara kingdom. So these are the material remains. Now come to the literary sources. Other records helped historians to reconstruct the history of Vijayanagara Empire, and these other records contain many books of that time, like Vijayanagara was the Krishna Dev Rai, and he also wrote a book that is Amukta Malyada. So that also tells us about the administration of that ruler, as well as the environment which was there in the Vijayanagara kingdom. And this is an image of the literature of Aravidu dynasty, which was the last dynasty which ruled the Vijayanagara kingdom. So that kind of literary sources is also available, from which we come to know about the Vijayanagara empire. Now here it is about the Colin McKenzie. You can see from the image, this is the painting of Colin McKenzie, and who discovered this Vijayanagara empire. And the ruins of Hampi were brought to the light in 1800 by an engineer and antiquarian, one who collects the old things. Antiquarian means one who collects the old things and old remains, and his name was the Colonel Colin McKenzie. So this is Colonel Colin McKenzie, who was a Britisher who discovered this great kingdom in 1800, and he was born in 1754 and became an engineer, surveyor and cartographer. Cartographer are the people who designs map, who draws the map of a particular area. So he surveyed that area and he prepared a topo sheet of that area. He told us about the ruins of that area. In 1815, he was appointed as the first Surveyor General of India and remained in the post till his death in 1821. And during that time, he made a remarkable contribution in Indian history by discovering this imperial capital of Vijayanagara. In order to understand India's past, to make governance of the colony easier, he surveyed many historic sites. Why the colonial people were very curious to know about the culture and the history of India? Because they wanted to govern India in a better way, because they were the alien people, they were not from the Indian subcontinent, so they did not know about much about Indian culture and its tradition. So they employed many people to discover the Indian tradition and its culture, and in that series Colin McKenzie also conducted a survey in that area, and during that survey he discovered this capital of Vijayanagara, that is called Hampi. He thought that the region customs and tradition will benefit the English East India Company in the administration. The company which came to India from Britain, that is English East India Company, who set up their rule in India after the Battle of Plassey. So they wanted to take help from the historians and surveyor to know about its culture and its tradition, so that they can rule the Indian people in a better way. Now Rayas, Naikas and Sultan. These are the terms which we will come across here in this chapter. According to the tradition, epigraphic evidence, two brothers, that is Harihara and Bukka, Harihara Rai and Bukka Rai. So Raya was the surname of Harihara Rai and Bukka Rai. They founded the kingdom of Vijayanagara in 1336. So these were the two brothers who were inspired by a guru, and his name was the Guru Vidyarna. You can see from the image also that the two brothers are blessed and inspired by the Guru, and they established the empire that is called the Vijayanagara Empire. The empire included different people who spoke different languages and followed different religious traditions. So there was not only Hindu people who used to live in this kingdom, there used to be people from other religions like the Jainism as well as Buddhism, and many people were also from the Christianity as well as in the Islamic religion. So it was a multi-religious kingdom, and the two brothers were inspired by a guru, and they set up the kingdom of Vijayanagara, and their name was Harihara Rai and Bukka Rai. Now contemporary kingdoms of Vijayanagara. What were the other kingdoms which used to be present in Indian subcontinent, especially in the South India at that time? Which were the contemporaneous kingdom of Vijayanagara? You can see that this is Vijayanagara. This is the border. This is entire Vijayanagara, and this is the largest kingdom of South India, which engulfed the parts of Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. The remaining kingdoms of South India used to be Bijapur kingdom, which was ruled by a Muslim ruler, Sultan of Bijapur. Bidar was also a Muslim kingdom. Golconda was also the kingdom which was ruled by a Muslim ruler. Ahmednagar, Barar. So these were the sultanates of South India, which were ruled by the Islamic people, and this was a Hindu kingdom. Gajapati ruler of Odisha, they were also Hindu, and they used to rule the areas of Odisha. So these are the contemporary kingdom of that time, and you can see that among these kingdoms, the most dominant kingdom is the Vijayanagara. On the northern frontier, the Vijayanagara kings competed with contemporary rulers such as the Sultan of the Deccan and the Gajapati ruler of Odisha for the control of the fertile river valleys and the resources that were brought by the overseas trade. Now you can see that the important Malabar coast, which is here in Kerala, a lot of trade used to take place from here to the Arabian Peninsula as well as to the Europe. So everybody wants to have a control of this trade, and there used to be competition among these rulers, and the victorious were the Vijayanagara ruler. As a result, the Vijayanagara used to be a very, very prosperous kingdom. So there used to be competition among these rulers, and there used to be frequent battle among them also. And as a result, the Vijayanagara rulers defeated the Sultan as well as the Gajapati ruler of Odisha, so that they can control this area. This area is the area which is irrigated by a river, that is Tungabhadra river, and the area lies between Krishna and Tungabhadra, that is also called Doab, and it used to be very, very fertile and very, very productive. So everybody of these sultans as well as the Gajapati ruler wanted to have a control of this region, because this used to be very, very fertile region. As a result, this was the bone of contention among these kingdoms, and finally Vijayanagara ruler took hold of this area. Karnataka Jaimu was the name used by the contemporaries to describe the Vijayanagara Empire. So what was the name of Vijayanagara at that time? The name was Karnataka Samra Jaimu. And today the state Karnataka is named after this name because Vijayanagara and Hampi lies in the state of Karnataka. So this is the old name of Vijayanagara kingdom. Now, expansion of Vijayanagara. The Vijayanagara set up by the ruler of Sangma dynasty, and Harihara and Bukharai used to belong to that dynasty. And at that time it used to be very small, but later on it was expanded in other areas, and you can see the expansion of the Vijayanagara. Before Vijayanagara there used to be the kingdoms of Chalukya, because Harihara and Bukharai used to be the ministers in the Chalukya dynasty under the Chalukya rulers, Kakatiyas, Cholas, Hoysalas and Pandyas, and East Ganga and Kalachuri. These used to be the ruler in the South India. Later on the kingdom of Vijayanagara was carved out from these kingdoms, and you can see another map that is the map of Vijayanagara kingdom. So this is the Vijayanagara. So you can see that Vijayanagara was a kingdom which was carved out from the areas of Chalukyas, Kakatiyas, East Ganga, Cholas, Hoysalas and Pandyas. So we can say that there used to be a lot of impact of these kingdoms upon the Vijayanagara, and their tradition also affected Vijayanagara in the later years. Now, king and traders. We will read about the kings of Vijayanagara and how the trade used to be important and who were the traders. I told you that a lot of trade used to take place from South India to the European countries and Arabian Peninsula. So trade was an important factor, and that factor led to the conflict between different sultans and the kingdom of Vijayanagara. Cavalry was very important part of the warfare in that period, and cavalry, as you know, that Ghursavar Sena, which requires the horses for this unit of the army of that time. So cavalry was most important, and for cavalry they required horses. And you know that the horses of Arabia and Central Asia are known as the best horses. So they wanted to have a hold of the Arabian horses, and Arabian horses used to come in that area only through the trade. And the trade was taking place from the western coast of South India, and that was controlled by the ruler of Vijayanagara. The import of horses from Arabia and Central Asia was important for the kings because they wanted to expand their cavalry, and cavalry used to play a decisive role in the battle at that time. This trade was initially controlled by the Arabian merchants. Arabian merchants used to come to India. They used to take spices and other commodities from Indian subcontinent, and they used to take it to Arabia, and from Arabia it used to be supplied to the European continent, and they used to earn a lot of profit. So in lieu of those spices, they used to deliver horses to these people, and these were controlled by the Arabian people, and they gave the name monsoon. Monsoon word we have read in 9th class also, that it has come from the Arabian Peninsula, because this was the name which was given to the seasonal reversal of wind system by the Arabian people. So Arabian used to be the trader who used to come at the Malabar coast. Local merchants who were involved in the horse trade at that time were known as the Kudrai Chetis. The word Kudrai means horses. So the Chetis means Seth or Vyapari. The Kudrai Chetis were the traders who used to trade in the horses at that time, and they were very, very rich traders of that time. From 1498, other actors such as the Portuguese arrived on the scene, because in 1498 Vasco da Gama came to India, and he discovered an alternative route to India so that he can bypass the Arabian Peninsula, because Arabian people used to charge a very high taxes from the traders who used to pass through that area. So to avoid that kind of charges, they wanted to discover an alternate route to India, and finally in 1498 Vasco da Gama, who was a Portuguese who came to India, so they discovered a new route to India that was passing through the Cape of Good Hope, and that is in Africa, to India. So they also started coming in the South India, and mainly they came to the region of Goa, and that was also controlled by the people of Vijayanagara. Vijayanagara was also noted for its markets dealing in spices, textile and precious stones. Spices were the products which were supplied from India to the European countries and Arabian countries. Textile was also manufactured in India, so these used to be the export item. As well as there used to be import of precious stones in that area. So the city of Vijayanagara was full of these items, that is spices, textile and precious stones. Trade was often regarded as a status symbol for such cities because these cities got their affluence or their prosperity from the trade. So trade was a status symbol for these cities, which boasted of a wealthy population that demanded high value exotic goods. The goods which were very valuable and precious, which used to be brought from outside or abroad, that used to have a great value at that time, and they were demanded by the people of Vijayanagara. It means the people of Vijayanagara used to be very prosperous. And why they were prosperous? Because of the trade. Here you can see the ruins of a market, and the bazaars were lined in this way. So this is a market of Vijayanagara, and we can still get to know about the ruins of Vijayanagara from this site. Especially precious stones used to be found in the Vijayanagara markets, and these were the jewelries. So jewelries can be demanded by a rich person only, and the people of Vijayanagara used to be very prosperous because of the trade, and the trade was taking place from western coast of India, which was controlled by the ruler of Vijayanagara. Now the apogee and the decline of the empire. Apogee means when the empire reached to its peak and how it got declined, that we will study in this topic. The first dynasty, known as the Sangma dynasty, I told you that Harihara and Bukka used to belong to this dynasty, exercised control till 1485. Thereafter this dynasty was replaced by another dynasty. They were supplanted by the Suluvas. The next dynasty was the Suluva, that is also found by the military commanders of that time, who remained in power till 1503. So this dynasty also came to an end in 1503, and they were replaced by Tuluvas, that is the third dynasty. And this dynasty was very powerful dynasty, and the kingdom reached to its zenith or its peak during this dynasty, and the famous ruler of this dynasty was Krishna Devaraya, and he belonged to the Tuluva dynasty. Vijayanagara under the rule of Krishna Devaraya. I told you that the most powerful ruler or the most famous ruler of Vijayanagara kingdom was the Krishna Devaraya. So we will read about the rule of Krishna Devaraya and his administration. Krishna Devaraya's rule, that was 1509 to 1529, was characterized by his full expansion and consolidation. Means he expanded his empire to the new areas and he tried to consolidate his empire. He brought under his control the land between Tungabhadra and Krishna. That I told you that it used to be a fertile doab, that is known by the name of Raichur doab. So he brought this doab under his control in 1512 by fighting the battle to the rulers of Bijapur, Golconda and Gajapati rulers. He defeated Pratap Rudra of Gajapati dynasty, the dynasty which used to rule in Odisha at that time. So he was defeated by Krishna Devaraya to bring Raichur Doab under his control, and he was the ruler of Odisha in 1514, and the sultans of Bijapur in 1520. So these were the rulers who were defeated by Krishna Devaraya so that he can take hold of the Raichur Doab, which was very fertile in South India at that time. His rule is credited with the buildings of fine temples and attractive gopurams. So he built up the fine temples in his time because he continued the tradition of the Pandyas, Cholas and Hoysalas who used to rule before the kingdom of Vijayanagara, that I had shown you through the map. And at that time they used to construct the magnificent temple, and that tradition was also carried on by the ruler of Vijayanagara in the later stages. And Gopuram was a structure which was added to the existing temple. So Gopuram was a kind of gateway which was constructed by the ruler of Vijayanagara and which was attached to the already existing temple of that time. And in many South Indian temples you can see the Gopuram which were added later on by the ruler of Vijayanagara. For example, the Gopuram of the Brideshwar temple at Tanjavur. Brideshwar temple, it's a famous temple of South India and it is devoted to Lord Shiva. We have read it in the last chapter also in Bhakti and Sufi movement. And this was the temple which was constructed by the Chola rulers. But the Gopuram was added by the rulers of Vijayanagara kingdom. He also founded the suburban township near the Vijayanagara called Naglapuram. And Nagla was the name of his mother. As a result, a new city was developed by the Krishna Deva Raya close to the Vijayanagara Empire, and the name of that city was the Naglapuram, named after the mother of Krishna Deva Raya.